Hi everyone, Sandman here. This video is brought to you by a donation from Caesar, and he didn't give me a specific topic, so I wanted to discuss the sexual marketplace and how more and more women are being excluded from it. As they lose access to men, any man, that's when they become feminists, and that's when they punish men for not giving them any attention. As more things like loverbots, adult content, MGTOW, and other things increase male sovereignty, women will increasingly get unhappier and unhappier. They will be desired less by beta males, and regardless of what people say, have a smaller pool of men to use as emotional tampons. They will increasingly have to enter the workforce and earn their own shekels, making them unhappier still. As a result of running on the independent woman treadmill to build and keep up their careers, they won't be able to find a man to have children with, adding even more to their suffering. Because as I've mentioned before, the only thing I've tended to see women happy about, even higher than the most hardened feminists, is if a baby that looks like Elmer Fudd is brought into the room. Suddenly their eyes light up and their foul mood vanishes, like TVs on Black Friday or Labor Day here in Canada. But if no one wants a woman, then she doesn't get her beta orbiter fix. She doesn't get her chat, or even the typical cuck is out of reach to her. So she gets angrier and fatter to cope with the lack of options that she has in life. She sees her salary and thinks to herself, if only I was making more money, I could actually afford my lifestyle and become a single mother. I think that the real reason women are pushing for the gender pay gap to be closed to zero and for women to make more money is because they know, subconsciously, they can't have children because they need more resources. They see many men not getting married and making money at the same time, and they think there has to be a way to siphon that money from them, the money the government already hasn't taken. But they're dreaming if they think they can actually take men's money away and expect men to produce just as much value as they always have for the economy at large. Women expect men to sacrifice no matter what using shaming language. I don't think that feminists predicted that men are going to go their own way and that they would be left high and dry as a beached land whale. They also can't blame themselves for the creation of men going their own way either, because women can't take agency and responsibility for their actions. So instead they need people like myself or other MGTOW content producers to blame for what's happening to them. They refuse to see the cause and effect of the situation. There are 4 or 5 things that are increasingly making women undesirable to men. The first one is weight, which is self-explanatory. Sure, many women get action even when they're large and pretending to be in charge, especially if they have a nice face and are properly proportioned in the chest region, if you know what I mean. But once they pass the wall anywhere between the age of 30 and 40, they get dumped because they now have 2 negative things against them: obesity and age. If they have a nice face that only a horse can love, and they're large, then it becomes even harder for them to land a man, even when they're actually in their 20s. It doesn't matter that for these women the wall is still a distance away, because they've already been covered in wave after wave of donuts and cream puffs. So women like that are done, and such women typically get used by men a few times here and there, and then are discarded. So it's easy to see why such women, you know the ones I'm talking about, the ugly overweight ones, end up becoming feminists in their mid to late 20s, if not earlier. When such women hit their mid to late 30s, that's when you see many of them become very militant, and are often the women I see in feminist protests. So at that point they're ugly, old, fat, and have a horrible attitude, because feminism has convinced them that everything is men's fault because of patriarchy. Ironically, at that point many of them have 6-figure salaries from being professors, but they don't have a baby, no man, and no one to basically share their life with as they get older. That's one of women's greatest fears. So if no one wants her, she's going to get bitter and she's going to teach her students about how bad men are, because she wants younger and more attractive women that still have a chance to get married and have a family to suffer the same fate. It all comes down to jealousy. I haven't even begun talking about women's attitudes. There's a sort of threshold that every man is willing to tolerate with regards to a bipolar or bossy woman. I've always left such women immediately once I found out about their attitude. I've dumped relatively attractive women before because of the way they were treating me. I instead chose to date less attractive women that were nice, or at the very least hid their negativity. Many guys seem to be fine being chubby chasers of women with good personalities while they're younger. But what they aren't counting on is the stretch that comes with age and all that fermenting fat. A 25-year-old woman with an extra 20 or 30 pounds sounds fine when you're the same age or a bit older. But a 220-pound woman at the age of 35 or 40 now has added age and a risk of angina. Her health problems begin to multiply like her waist size, and you're stuck not only buying purses and shoes, but also medicines to keep her upright. If such a woman has a terrible attitude or becomes passive-aggressive, it's like hell on earth. Why would any man want that? Especially if she's actually treating you like dirt, mocking you and using you. That's when if she's alone, then she'll finally realize that no one wants her. At least if she has a kid, the kid would be dependent on her and the man would continue to send her a check if they're divorced. Another thing that women aren't taking into consideration is that so-called beta males are finally waking up to how they're being friend-zoned and used as emotional tampons. Back in the days before Facebook, when you met a woman in person and she friend-zoned you, it would take a lot longer to realize what was happening. Because men couldn't talk to each other online about what was happening to them anonymously like we can today. So today, instead of actually taking 3 or 4 years to finally clue into what the friend zone is, a typical man is doing it now in less than a year. He's then breaking the habit of giving such women attention over the following year. So let's just say that in 2 years, he gets over the friend zone completely. But women are waiting longer to get married, and many stay single or swing around with different men in short-term flings. You can sure bet that those men are using them and not being used as emotional tampons themselves. So there's a lot of single desperate 30 and even 20-something women hitting me up for attention on Facebook recently. This has been happening a lot more than usual in the last 2 or 3 years. They just pop in out of the blue and talk to me like we've known each other forever and expect an immediate response. They've obviously been trying the same thing with other guys, and those guys suddenly found themselves busy, just like I often tell them. The difference is that I'm actually busy, plus I don't really want to talk to them and listen to their problems. So they go on to the next guy and the next guy until they eventually find someone willing to talk to them and hear their problems for an hour or two. Then there's a woman that just won't stop contacting me. She's thin but 37, below average face, past her fertility window, horrible attitude, and working as a cleaning lady. Doesn't she sound like an absolute prize to everyone? She doesn't even have a driver's license or car. The only thing she actually has going for her at this point is her weight, but age will take care of that too in another 5 to 10 years. The truth is that I don't want her, and no one does. A few years ago I would have given her a chance when she was younger if she didn't have such a terrible tongue and not in the right ways. But today, why would I risk everything I've worked for to have a Down syndrome baby with a woman that would nag me to an early grave and take all of my money? No man in his right mind would actually fall for that. The last few women I dated had their own cars, careers, were around the age of 30 to 35, and had nicer feminine faces. Plus, they did their best to hide their crazy personalities. But you can always see crazy peeking through. One crazy feminist wanted to shack up with me, but she had her own car and career, but she was overweight in her early 30s. It's not too hard for women to find a man. All they have to do is go on the paleo diet, put on a veil of sanity and nice attitude, and have a job and a car. But there's so many fat women out there that refuse to lose weight and expect men to come over and suckle their cankles. When they finally realize that no one wants them, then their only power is to gather in numbers to petition and nag the government to hand them goodies through taxation. It's like a stampede of land whales trying to get free burgers at Wendy's. You know that's not going to end well. Wendy's will run out of free burgers and go bankrupt, and there's only one restaurant manager with barely enough status for one of these women to marry. There aren't enough options for women these days. They were obviously better off getting married like back in the day when they were 20, skinny, relatively attractive, and far less emotionally damaged. But women were sold a false bill of goods, and now they're very pissed off and very, very hungry, and are looking for someone to blame. Women can't be blamed, so that only leaves men in the patriarchy. It's like they're blaming the devil for their troubles instead of looking into the extra-large mirror to see the real culprit. They are the leftover women that no one wants because they waited too long and focused on the wrong things in life. Recently I was mentioning to someone how I used to see the same women on Tinder month after month, year after year. Many of them weren't willing to settle and they were keeping themselves on the market, waiting for a miracle man. Again, what they don't realize is that no one wants them. The women on there that are especially unwanted are single mothers. If you match up with one of those, then they immediately contact you and start talking to you. It's probably bad for them because once most guys figure out they're single mothers, they simply don't want to raise someone else's kid. But also most guys, if they swipe right without reading the comments, are like, cool, a woman contacted me first. Then they read the profile, see that she has a kid, and then they block or delete her immediately. I'm glad the word is finally getting out there that single mothers are basically not worth it. Men have awoken to that, and there's pretty much a world of pain out there if you're a single mother. I find that only the really thirsty men, or the guys that don't plan to stick around with them, get together with them from time to time. But the problem is they can't keep a man, even if they get them. They've been so brainwashed by fat acceptance culture, feminism, Beyonce, and the independent woman. Coltrane recently did a video where washed-up women in their 30s in Hollywood films end up with the men of their dreams in Hollywood scripts. Women are being taught one version of reality that doesn't line up with what's really happening in the real world. That video is called The Female Power Fantasy, and I put a link to it in the description so you guys can check it out. It shows just how delusional even successful women that are thin, have a pretty face, and status are when it comes to their expectations when they age. It doesn't matter how well a woman takes care of herself. Age is eventually going to get her. She's going to shrivel up into a California raisin, and no one is going to want her anymore. The modern day fantasy being sold to women is that they can live life as long as possible and then squeak in at the end with a Hail Mary play to land the perfect man, and have a child in their late 30s or early 40s. That appears to be the new American dream, or Western dream for women. Riding the carousel as long as possible and then getting off to see a nice young successful hunk that's everything you've ever wanted. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today. Thanks again, Caesar, for the donation, and I hope you enjoyed this topic. Don't forget to smash the like button the way that unwanted women aren't getting smashed. Bang the bell and check out the MGTOW mystery link. Follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Subscribe to me on minds.com or gab.ai to get the video for the day after tomorrow. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills, and remember, a red pill a day keeps the Facebook friend zone away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.